Hello there, welcome to this CNBC Africa special with me, Eugene. Anangwe. Now, Rwanda's average age of farmers is 55 years in a country that 60% of its population is actually under the age of 25 years. So why aren't young Rwandans interested or actually actively engaged in agribusiness? In the following CNBC Africa special, I'll be speaking to an array of Africans who are actually young and already in agribusiness on the challenges and opportunities in this sector. I want to start with you, Dieudonné. You know, when you started Gashora Farm Limited, you and your team, what sort of ideas were running in your mind? What sort of thoughts were running in your mind as a young person thinking this big? You can just start by sharing that with us.
Thank you, Mr. Eugene. When I started Gashora Farm, first of all, I didn't start as creating Gashora. I started as a simple farmer who were growing vegetables such as tomato and melons, and then such kind of commodities are very perishable. Once you don't get a red market, we could lose our investment. Sometimes also we get some a good money. Now it became like gambling. I said now, as someone who did agriculture, economics and agrobusiness in high school and at the university, I said now I need to have a farming contract before I start to put the seeds in the soil. So I got a contract with an exporter of chili to the UK. We started like that, and we had faced some challenges of getting the right seeds. You could harvest 1 ton, then the 40% they reject because of you're not getting the right seeds. Also, then I didn't give up with the business. I said, why can now not be professional? Then I found the Gashora. You know, I started 2014, these vegetable things, but I created Gashora end of 2015. So then I said, now I need to be professional. With attending such meetings and conferences, I got the idea of even the adventures of meeting some people who linked me with some buyers, and then I got my own contract. Then I started to come back and mobilized farmers, and then we start export on our own.
Right. You know, when you talk about Chile and talk about Rwanda, there's one big name that never misses in that top list of people who are exporting, and that is Akabanga. As a young person, how are you competing with this giant?
Yeah, actually, we don't compete with him because for us, we start exporting the raw material. Mainly, we start with fresh chili, and then we could see also opportunity in dry chili. And then when we're exporting this chili, you know, export market, they require the first grade. They do sorting. And then those second grade we're putting in the West. Then they say, why can't I start something and make a value addition on this second grade for my own farm and also other farmers? So that's how I started with my chili. And I could see what even I can come up with innovation with that. Because for him, he has his own product, but mine is different with his, because mine I try, because me, I'm into spice a lot. So I use different spices such as ginger, garlic, black pepper. So I make a mix of spices, but my aim was to reduce this post-harvest losses.
Right.
After, yeah.
Perfect. So the moral of the story here is everybody find your lane and stick to it.
Yeah.
Ngunyi, talk to me about your project, share your experience. How did it all start? Where did that dream, first of all, come? And what exactly were you, thinking of when you came up with your project?
Oh, thank you so much. I actually grew up in a farm, and in as much as that was the case, it had never come to me that that is where I will end up being. And many years to come, I just started seeing from a background in communication and in media and in strategy, I just moved into social enterprise. And social economic was a huge thing for me. So as we were repositioning the business to a social impact business, one of the key things that was for eradication of poverty. And there was this huge potential in agriculture. And that is how we ventured into considering investment in agriculture to eradicate poverty. Yeah.
Perfect. And this was something that I'm sure you were fighting within the inner voice. You had some of these inner voices telling you you can do it, another one telling you you cannot do it. Share with us how you dealt with these two voices.
I think that dealing with these two voices actually comes from the point of the societal challenges. So coming from a very corporate job and also moving into starting your company within our corporate clients, now moving into this space of agriculture where nobody thinks that you will make it to the level that you're making it. But I think from the passion of seeing the opportunity, that dream does not fade. So money follows passion.
Money follows passion.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's move on to Singapore now. I mean, Lam, many people, when we hear about Singapore, I mean, most countries sometimes say that we want to be a Singapore of, you know, you fill in the dots. Share with me how you started your project, what it is about, and how agribusiness among youth in Singapore is actually working out.
So as most of you know, Singapore is not in Africa. The reason why I'm here is actually I am an entrepreneur and I'm also an employer of quite a few youth here in Rwanda. The company that I started in 2012 is now grown to become the largest poultry farm in Rwanda. So if you have eaten chicken in Rwanda, you probably have eaten my chicken. Rwanda does, want to position itself to be the Singapore of Africa, and they have drawn many parallels between the two countries. And there's constantly a lot of cooperation between the government to structure policies and regulations so that Rwanda can emulate the Singapore success story. How I ended up here is through my previous family business, which is actually in port operations. So although the company was headquartered in Singapore, we've always been very Africa-centric. So in 2011, my father took me here to explore some opportunities. And after he exited his business, he decided that Rwanda was the most logical place to send his daughter. And off I went to do some due diligence, and we came across the opportunity to invest in the poultry sector purely because poultry meat was the most expensive meat in the market at that point of time.
Perfect, amazing. Let's shift now to Zimbabwe. How is it like Mashumba? I mean, you could share with us, first of all, your story, how the dream came up, and how you're going so far as we speak.
All right. Thank you very much, Eugene. For me, it started off as a dream when I was 14. I had this dream that I wanted to make a difference. I used to see a lot of people suffering, and I just had this thing in me that I wanted to do something to be able to provide food for people. So that's how it started. And then a few years, I went to a school that was focused on supporting agriculture at a young age. And I told my parents that, you know what, I want to try it. And my mom always believed in me. She said, you can do anything as long as you put your mind to it. I didn't realize the challenges that I would face. I was a young woman, and the course was dominated by only men. They used to bully me. It wasn't structured in a way to support women, because we used to wear like shorts, the khaki shorts, the uniform, even for the women. It was tough, but because of the bullying and all the fact that people didn't think I would succeed, I decided to make that like a motivation, and then I passed. I beat the boys, I had distinctions. Then I went to the UK, studied a degree in agriculture. Worked there for 2 years at a company that had been headhunted because they had seen just my ambition to want to change. Then when I came back to Zimbabwe, I really wanted to go back into farming because I was working for an organization that was working on mechanizing agriculture, and I realized that this was really a challenge. So I came back, I had no money, nothing, and I remember coming to the farm, it was a battle to just actually start. I had no funding. Like, I sometimes tell people that me being here today is holding on, resilience, being able to get up even when you're starting off with maybe $50 and being able to like convince people to invest in you so that you're able to develop a fully mechanized farm, which I do today. Today I've managed to utilize 400 hectares of the farm, managed to grow crops for export, but I started off with nothing. My parents didn't have a lot of money to invest in me, but I managed to convince people to invest in me, so that's why I'm here today.
400 hectares. I mean, powerful message right there. And anytime you ask a young person, I mean, not all of them, so don't throw stones at me or bottles of water. Most of the time when you ask young people to invest in agriculture, I mean, some will tell you, where do I get that piece of land? I don't even have one. My parents live in the city. They do not have land. How did you manage to manage these hectares, these large tracts of land?
For me, I'm farming like very near where our rural area is. Like I could walk to my grandmother's place. So I'm utilizing land that has been available like in the rural areas. Access to land is something that I definitely think that it's vital for young people, and lots of young people don't actually have access to any land at all to start any projects.
Kaba, let's now go to Kaba, who's from Senegal. I mean, just tying into what the previous panelists have spoken about, let's talk a bit about that issue of access to land as far as young people who want to venture in agribusiness are concerned. How much of a challenge is it where you come from?
Okay, from Senegal, we have a lot of problem to have access to the market. My background is in IT and engineering computer science, so I'm not really focused on land and production. The challenge that I've seen was that there were many women who were working on processing food and they don't really have access to the market. And as an engineer in computer science, I try to put my knowledge on this sector to enable them to have access to the market and have more visibility and sell their products.
And since you actually rightly say that your sector is not really into the issue of land, the understanding of agriculture seems to be centered on in the farms, yet it is actually a cross-sectoral thing where, you know, IT guys, it's an ecosystem. Share with us probably the real reasons as to why we need to move or shift our thinking about agriculture as young people. From just farming, the dirty work, to start thinking of it as, you know, a chain, a value chain where we can actually plug in from whatever aspects or sectors we want to go into.
Exactly. I think that we have to see now agriculture has in the whole value chain and try to bring new solutions and services to enable farmers to grow more their business and also give them access to the information so that they can have a valuable production. So it's really interesting because now we have a lot of young people who are launching their own business, but just based on services, providing good services to the farmers so that they can really grow their business.
Right, perfect. Opeyemi from Nigeria. I mean, share with us your project. How did it come to be? What sort of challenges are you facing in that end of Africa?
2015, I landed at the African Development Bank annual meetings. I met a couple of people, stakeholders in the sector, like the current president, President Addition, and they were really motivating. And I got a model to start a farmers cooperative. And the then knowledge manager of the bank told me that the bank would finance the cooperative. So I got the model, I went back to Nigeria, and I went to my wife's hometown, and I put the farmers together, over 200 of them, and I promised them we're going to give you money. But at the end of the day, the fund was not coming. So the integrity of my wife's family was at stake. So I spoke to one of our uncles and said, oh, so I'm in deep mess, we have to clear this. And he gave some money to start the project. It failed. They took my money and never paid. But I was passionate and I wanted it to work. So I went back and revisited the model I got from the bank that, oh, you don't even give them money, you give them input. So I gave it a second shot and it worked. And the second shot, we started getting the produce, we're selling to market. So when they were majorly cassava farmers, so when the produce was getting too much, I could not handle it, we set up a cassava processing project where we process into Gari. That's a major staple consumed by over 80 million households in Nigeria. So we're reaching out to a large market with a high population. So it was going on that way. We were generating, it started very small. We were generating revenue, but we were not eating up our profit. I think that was one of the major problems young people who are going to agribusiness have. Don't eat up your profit.
Don't eat up your profits. If you're tweeting, that is a tweet right there.
Yeah, don't eat up your profit for no reason. You have to keep that profit, roll it back in the business.
Right.
You need to delay your gratification. It's very important. So we moved on, and then the cassava business was going well. On the average now, we supply average of 35 tons to Lagos market every month. So from there, we have a CSR we do with Nigerian prisons. We're raising agripreneurs in the prison. VOA, Voice of America, and Channels TV, leading TV station in Nigeria, came and did a documentary on the project. And then we moved beyond Nigeria because I watched this show, Richard Quest show on CNN when he came to Ivory Coast, and he went to the cocoa farmers and showed them chocolate bar, and they don't know it. They don't know what it was. So I realized that a lot of the raw materials come from Africa. But they get out of Africa, refine it, and make it into finished produce, come back to us, and we pay premium for it. Why can't we start producing in Africa, processing adding value to what we have. So I wanted to go out of Nigeria to expand market. So I started reading about East Africa. And then I saw coffee and tea was a major thing here in East Africa. So, and then after settling for coffee or tea, I needed to start reading about government stabilities and all that so that I know where to invest. And Rwanda came up. So I landed in Rwanda in February, and for a 7 days investment visit anyway, facilitated by RDB. I was going from one place to another, visiting stakeholders in the sector, Rwanda Mountain Tea, Gorillas Coffee, a lot of them. And then we ended up with a deal with Rwanda Farmers Coffee Company. And today we export coffee from here to West African markets. We supply big guys in Nigeria now. Some Nigerians here may know about Sheraton. Some of us may know about Sheraton. We also export to the US. We're exported to Canada also. Last week, we did a little quantity to Japan. Right. So the market is expanding, really, really expanding. So my drive is to see how we can add value to African produce.
Adding value to the
and
African
more
produce.
Also, I take this as a job. I tweeted last week, a lot of young Africans who are into farming, they ask you, what do you do? They say, oh, I don't have a job now, but I just have a small farm and money. No, don't say that. Anywhere I go to, they ask me, what do you do? I'm a farmer. I say, oh, yes, I'm a farmer. Hear it again, I'm a farmer. I'm proud of my job. Right. And every young African, everyone here, you must be proud of what you do. A doctor comes out and says, I'm a doctor. Don't be intimidated. Right. You're the reason why the doctor is still alive. Yes. Without you, he's not eating. If you go to the hospital today, they tell you, go take the social dose of a drug. You need to eat. And go find out. Even the drugs you take, most of them come from herbs, which you planted. So you need to carry yourself with that pride. Don't be intimidated.
Pride. Thank you so much, Opeyemi. Powerful words right there. And this brings us to the question back here at home, Mr. Dieudonné. In Rwanda, those in the farms are averagely within the age of 55 years. Yet this country, over 60% of us are actually below the age of 25 or less than that. Why is it that we can't walk with our shoulders held up and our chins held up high and thump our chest, say that, yes, I'm in the agricultural business? Why is it that young people are not in there?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe that's true. Average years of people in the farming in Rwanda is 55 years, that's true. But for us in Rwanda, we can say we are trying to change this mindset. But first of all, let me give the example why they think they're still believing that, because they can't do farming. It's of course, they think agriculture, even in the previous session they've been discussing about this, it's how they take agriculture like as outdated, no income generation. Also, it can't, for example, they relate it to poverty according to their parents. They grown up with seeing their parents doing agriculture and don't see progress. They're still doing small holding, they're still holding farmers. But for us in Rwanda, I can say we're trying to change this mindset.
How are we changing the mindset?
Yeah, because our Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, they had an initiative 2 years back where they invited all the youth who were doing business. For us, we're still farmers on our own.
And it's working.
Yeah, and
are you not saying this because the minister is seated here? Or?
No. At that time,
it's true. It is working.
Yeah, at that time, they were in partnership with FAO. They invited other partners, where they set up a forum of youth in agribusiness from Rwanda. So that forum, it's helped us and even to bring more youth. And even as we had a voice where we can even tell people our success story, and start to bring other people. Like I remember even when we started, we were among like less than 500, but right now, the minister has said before, we are like more than 4,300. And we believe there are others even who are not, we haven't yet mapped. Yes. We think like for that, I accept that a large number is not into farming, but for us we are trying to change this mindset. And the reason why we are trying to change is that we are trying to improve the image of agriculture, because we are trying to show how agriculture is the value chain, as you said. Right. It's that some people are in farming. Even our forum is composed of those 5 pillars, where we can see who are in farming, crop production, others are nice for agriculture. We have here youth who have application where you can Google and see where you can sell your product.
There's an opportunity for everyone.
Yes, even the input supply, even processing. So we can say we still have a long way to go, but some youth are taking a lead and they are progressing. Yeah.
Great. It's important to be optimistic. It's very important. Steve Gonyi, how do we make young people get interested in agribusiness? We already know why they do not want to be there, but what sort of practical things you want your voice to go out to the people in charge, to the people responsible, to change whatever we know is causing young people not to be in agribusiness? What is it? What do we do?
I think first of all is from us, the youth, to understand that to engage in agriculture or agribusiness is no rocket science. I used my background in advertising to start creating brands and starting rebranding some of the products which are there. I've talked to road engineers and I've told them how they can connect, working with streams so that they can just shift from whatever it is that they're doing into something servicing into the agriculture. So there are lawyers, there's all these litigations that are happening within land laws. So there's so much in terms of whatever has happened in terms of your background. You can come and connect and engage very quickly into it. So back into the what I think some of the objectivities that can help increase this, I think starts with the academia. We are having like our colleagues here leaving the country to go and study agricultural studies outside of the continent. Why can't it be here? Because once we push in the academia, then you have agricultural science, you have engineering in agriculture, so that is how I feel that the more we have penetration in the agricultural sector, then you will have also the professionalization of it in the sector, from agriculture all the way to the agribusiness side, because you'll find there's no much governance within a farm setup if you do not have somebody who has understood some sciences behind it. We were talking about in the things about climate change. Those are some of the things which are happening, and you cannot just come and just guess, because that's what's happening a lot. A lot of quacks are there coming to con people in terms of, I know this, but you cannot prove that they do that, because you and them, they're the same. Right. So I think from the academia point of view, we need to see some injection in studies so that we can have professional people in the industry.
Giving practical solutions that are well tested and scientific. Lam, the issue of scaling up. Yes, it's one thing to start up your agribusiness with 2 chicken, 3 chicken, but the market is big, as we've been told. And how is it a difficult thing for young people to scale up their projects? What sort of concerns do you have that you'd like to raise here on behalf of young people in agribusiness so they can be supported to scale up their projects, whatever they are?
So I think oftentimes when you think about being an entrepreneur in a business, you think about having to do everything by yourself. The biggest barrier to scaling up is obviously the lack of availability of land. So especially in Rwanda, because it's such a small country, you often don't find very big scale projects. So in order to get a farmland that is sizable enough that you can scale up, it's going to be definitely very difficult. However, I think the mindset also has to transform to think about it in terms of contract farming, for example. And this is what we are currently doing with our business, and we're transforming it to become a primarily contract farming model, where in order to expand and to scale up, we actually directly involve smaller scale farmers and also allow them participation in the market, whilst also guaranteeing volumes to scale up our business as well. Right.
How about in Zimbabwe? How is it like as far as the issue of scaling up? How much of a challenge is it for young people like you?
All right, thank you. I just wanted to answer like a question that you asked. Are they young people in agriculture? That question is asked a lot. And to be honest, we are here. There are many young people who are in agriculture, but organizations can't find us. I think that needs to be addressed, really, that we are there. And is agriculture attractive? I think I can speak for Zimbabwe to say agriculture is attractive. We've seen a lot of white farmers succeed and drive Range Rovers, nice cars. It's attractive. But what's the missing component is the funding in agriculture. It's totally not existent. I can testify for myself. There's not any innovative funding models to think that, in fact, sometimes you come to these conferences and you hear about organizations talking about funding models that are there. You approach them and they tell you 20%. For a farmer, 20% is too much for me. And 4 months, pay in 4 months. You know, there are no models that are funding for us to pay 1 year. There's no funding for capex, and to be able to farm commercially, you need to develop the mechanization of your agriculture. Otherwise, it's not going to really give you money. So in order for us to scale up, we really need to look at how funding is there in the whole model, the whole comprehensive model. If you're going to fund me as a farmer, you need to fund me my capex expenses. You need to fund me working capital, because I need to be, most farmers earn once a year. I need to be able to live for 1 year. So I think that's what's causing the lack of scaling up. Farmers are there, they just don't have any funding at all.
Anybody here in the room who works in the financial services sector?
There are different things that youth can look at. You know, primary agriculture needs a lot, or production agriculture needs a lot of hand-holding. Now, the hand-holding services may not necessarily be available from commercial banks. The hand-holding services are provided by different partners, including governments. And to some extent, sometimes you also need to have your own skin in the game. And in the absence of all that, it becomes a challenge. Now, the second challenge that we have as commercial banks is probably the little we've invested in knowledge of what goes on in agriculture. What are the risks? Where can we get the mitigants for different risks? Because, believe me, we are 100% interested in success. We know what agriculture contributes to the economy.
How long, Huntington, do you need as a bank to get to do that research and know and then start acting?
We don't need longer. We probably should have done it yesterday. But we can't do it alone. We need actors to come together. When I speak of youth in agriculture, who's going to provide the capex? What models of capex funding are available? Mm-hmm. When we talk about working capital, access to markets, post-harvest handling, there is a lot that we need to unpack and understand. Now, some of the youth, or some of us, I actually consider myself youth as well. We should even look into providing services. You know, mechanization is one business. It needs not to be looked at as agriculture. It can be a business that provides mechanizing solutions to agriculture actors.
Right. Ope, what is your reaction to that statement? Does it make sense to you as a young person?
Well, I think I'm on the other side on this issue of funding. The issue of funding is overrated. And then we place a low concentration on the issue of intellectual property. I just shared with us now how I started a cooperative, and I was not knowledgeable enough, even though I had the model, but I failed. What if I got the money from a bank? So you have a lot of young people, because, for example, in Nigeria and even across Africa, I have a lot of young people reach out to me on social media. Oh, we like what you're doing, we want to do this one. And I start asking them questions. So you realize that after asking them 1 or 2 questions, you realize that they have very little knowledge about what they want to do. So now, if you are the bank, and then such a person approaches you and say, oh, I need a loan of XYZ amount, and then you ask questions and he can't even answer basic, okay, I want to do cassava farming, I need $100. Okay, what is your expected yield per hectare? And it goes blank. So what do you can't give such, so we need to place high importance on intellectual property. Let the young people go get knowledge about what they want to do. Weigh the cost, count it, see how you want to go about it. Go and learn. Not just about funding. I can count a lot of people who have funding and their project failed. So it's not all about funding.
It's not just about the funding.
Yeah.
Kaba, do you think it's all about the funding? Because this is one of those reasons. Number one, mostly for young entrepreneurs, funding is our problem. Is it a problem for you?
I think that it's true. Funding is a problem, but it's not the only one problem. I think that when we have a business, it's also important to have access to the market, the public market. Like the NGOs or international organization or the government need to really rely on youth, trust that we can bring innovative solution. As we are working on ICTs, the first things when I start my business was I knocked on the door on an international organization to show them my ideas and try to work with women who are beneficiary of the program that they already launched in Senegal. But no one answered to me. it's because they don't rely on what we are doing. And if we launch our business and we have access to this market, we sometimes don't really need to have the funding. So I think that it's important to enable youth also to have access to
the market.
To the market,
Right.
exactly.
One of the people who has the key to that, in one word or another, is the Deputy Secretary General of the EAC, Honorable Bazivamo. From the East African Community point of view, what sort of things are you doing to be able to allow young people like Kaba and others to knock onto these regional markets and have their doors open?
What the banks fears normally is to lose. If there are no insurers, of course, the investment is not protected. But also, on the other hand, young people who are failing, once they fail, they have to be a kind of guarantee which can help them actually not to lose forever, but to be still there and to come back so that they can actually restart. You know, in some businesses, sometimes the first step is the hardest, and once you have done it, it becomes easier to move forward. So here then, what I say, the market, of course, is an issue, and this goes together with information and also networking. At the East African community level, what you are trying also is to create this kind of network among young people involved in the agriculture sector, in agribusinesses, so that they can also exchange information, exchange experiences, so that sometimes when they are dealing among themselves, it becomes also an asset when it comes to strengthen the way and building in them this kind of being courageous and not to fail and fail forever, but to start and keep on going. So this environment where young people can feel confident, but also, on the other hand, our government, this is what I have highlighted, and I think it is important, have to be more proactive, because investing in the young people, it is not always to think about what do we get immediately, but what do we plan to get in a sustainable way for the future. Because investing in them is actually investing in the future.
The future.
Thank you.
Honorable Minister, as they bring the microphone to you, please, why are we not involving these young people in policy formulation?
I think the question you are asking is very legitimate, and it's important that not only young, well, today we are talking about youth, tomorrow we'll be talking about women, after tomorrow we speak about general agriculture community. So I feel it's important that everyone get involved into the process of what is taking place that is affecting people's lives.
Right. How youth-friendly is our agriculture policy?
I developed it, so I feel it's friendly, but people can speak for themselves, and I'm sure that during the development everyone was involved. So, but I'm not the one to talk about it, because people are there to appreciate and
critique as well.
Critique, yeah.
Right, fair enough. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Let's move to Steve. I mean, on the same issue of involvement, I mean, young people probably feel that this is not for us, because at the end of the day, policies are formulated by a certain group of people, and then at the end of the day, we are not involved. I mean, how is it like in Kenya?
I'll be honest to say that I'm not much involved in the policy space. One, because it goes back to what my core ideal is. People are hungry. That is the fact. So I will want to engage in things like policy. I'll want to engage in that. However, it will take a dialogue and times. So like one of the business models that we have focused with, we know like Kenya has the largest slum, which is Kibera. And, you know, there's no policy that we should be speaking about. Those people need to eat. So when we're talking about access to market, and I know two of my colleagues are also doing export market, to me, that is my market. If I say that I will indulge in other discussions, but this is what I'm skewed to. So we look at it and say that at times some of the policies will definitely, policies takes time because it's legislation. Policies take time because it has other stakeholders' involvement in it. But does that stop me from being an agripreneur, from making ends meet, employing logistic people? Because like this is the case, and in many urban informal settlements, there's no nutrition that is there. You know, those are some of the issues that are there, ECD, you know, malnutrition, and also all these other things. So we can start engaging in so many discussions, which are, again, as the minister is saying, they're not light discussions. They are very important discussions. But let us get to the end of it and say, as youth in agribusiness, where are we most can we use our energies in? There are those who can be used in energy in policy making, and you know that does not take a short time. But if we are to look at poverty eradication, which is my core focus, and helping people eat, there's some discussions that I rather not be in it, because I'll be running around the world from this meeting to that meeting, this other meeting to that meeting, policies here, did we have quorum here, and all those other things that are happening. But then what is happening to the people who are hungry? So to me, there's some discussions that I will leave a competent part of the government to work on, other developing partners to work on, because they have the infrastructure for that. Right. So to me...
So the issue of involvement sometimes is, or lack of it, is by choice, depending on which area you are interested in.
Yes.
Lam, talk to me about the key things that you would wish to see probably highlighted, if they are missing actually, in these policies that affect young people who are in agribusiness. What sort of things you want to see highlighted in these policies?
Well, I've actually had, you know, great success working with the Rwandan government in building up my business, and purely representing the private sector point of view, the government does listen and they do accommodate. But it's true, like policies, they take time, and you know, they take time to discuss, and it takes time to involve every stakeholder that's involved, and then it takes even longer to get implemented and passed. In terms of youth policies, I'm not really, you know, in the position to comment, because I'm not coming from Rwanda, so I'm not really familiar with, you know, the issues that they face. But the three key barriers to entry that I can give feedback on, based on having employed a lot of youth myself, is firstly, you know, my parents didn't send me to university to become a farmer. So it's about changing that ideology that farming is about working in the field, you know, under the hot sun. They didn't realize what a commercial farm looked like until they joined us. And ever since we brought around, you know, a modern way of farming, you know, this has since generated a lot of interest in modern farming. Secondly, those who did decide to go to the university and study vet or animal husbandry or livestock production actually struggle to find jobs. This is the biggest feedback that I get from all university graduates, and we do hire a lot of grads from the National University, all of whom have vet degrees. And there are just not enough commercial projects. And so I guess on the level of you know, youth employment, it's certainly about, you know, purely just attracting more investors who can bring about more opportunity to employ youth. And thirdly, yeah, access to capital is just the biggest problem, and especially for greenfield projects. And whilst there's a lot of capital available overseas, accessing the capital for greenfield projects in, you know, frontier markets is extremely difficult, even for me as, you know, a foreign investor.
Mashumba, still talk to me about the issue of the importance of involvement of young people in policy formulation on things that actually do affect them, that we see out here.
All right, thank you very much. Policy is very, very important. Firstly, I would say we need a policy for access to land, because currently in Zimbabwe there's policy for access for women to get land, but there's nothing for youth. So we need a policy of youth should have a certain percentage for land. Then there's also governments should also be accountable for certain programs that they bring in. How many youth benefit? Like we've got mechanization, irrigation programs, but when you find who benefited, only the people in government themselves. They just gave themselves. The minister of what gave him, what about the youth? In Zimbabwe, we had a youth fund. And I remember they said that there's availed some money for the youth. And I remember I asked everyone in the union, because we are a group of young people, who benefited. I applied, I was rejected. No one benefited that I knew. And I asked them on a panel, please, many times, tell us who benefited. Then they said, at the end, we decided we're not going to do youth anymore. Just give the one with the best business proposal. One person gets all the money. So I think we need to have policies in place where we can have open dialogue with our heads of states, and they can be real with us. If they are serious about supporting youth, they should put policy, and they should show us evidence that these people benefited and we supported them.
Put money where their mouth is.
Yes.
Not eat the money literally. Kaba, how is the issue of policy formulation important for you?
From my perspective and IT background, there is a lot of entrepreneurs working on IT sector in agriculture, and they are considered as startups. And when we start our businesses, we don't really have all the resources. It's important for the government to enable us to have a good environment to do business. And the first thing is to have a good status for young people who want to go through these startups and have their own business, but also think about a new way of having the taxes. It's really, really something that really return us as a startup to grow up. Because just when you start your business, 3 months after, they will knock on the door to ask you to pay the tax, and you don't have enough revenue to do that. So it's really important, exactly, to think about it as a policy decision.
Right. Opeyemi, just real quick on the same issue.
It's like they all said, it's very critical. And I think it's also very important to engage young people, because the adults don't understand our challenges like we do. We understand our challenges better. Even though they pass through that stage of life, we are in the stage of life, we know our realities, we know our challenges, we know our problems. So whatever decision they are going to make in terms of policies, it's only expected to carry young people along, bring them on table. I think Commonwealth is doing that. I was in one of the conferences as a speaker in Kampala. And every one of us young people were involved in the policy-making process, making contributions and talking to the minister. So I think it's something very important. Everyone has to come to the table to decide. You can't behold and decide for a young person. You need to hear him.
I just want to emphasize the fact that what for young people are highlighting issue of government to invest in youth. It has not to be taken as a favor. Government should really invest in young people, and this they have committed invulnerable declaration, where our head of state actually have committed to invest at least 6% of public expenditure in agriculture. It is only not only that, actually they have also committed at least 10% in agriculture to ensure at least 6% growth every year for the national GDP. They have also committed actually to ensure that we create a job for at least 30% of young people in agriculture. This is a commitment which has to be implemented. And what we see, actually there is a peer review which has been done by the African Union most recently. And what we find out is actually our government are not investing enough in agriculture. We congratulate Rwanda because they have emerged the first being actually involved in that sector and involving better than others in the agriculture sector. But still in the whole Africa, we are lagging behind. And this is again a call. Government should be implementing the commitments they have done. This is one hand, but on the other hand, as an advice for young people involving in the agriculture sector, it's important when you begin to keep working together or being informed about standards. Standards, because this is a kind of limitation sometimes which can be a very negative, strong barrier for your development. If you have not invested in it and thought about it from the beginning, sometimes it becomes more difficult to adhere to the standards because you have not actually begun with. And it is important to think about it.
Right.
The second thing is, most of our people, when they are investing or when they are working in agriculture sector, they target, in general cases, is to see Europe or US. And yet the biggest market is among ourselves in Africa. So think about it, how to actually address the local market and to ensure you are not targeting very far when you are able to produce for local. At the East African community level, we are actually fighting for removal of non-tariff barriers to implement the common market protocol when it comes to free movement of goods and also to promote intra-regional trade. And this should be also actually one of the strongest focus. Trading intra-Africa.
Trading intra-Africa. Perfect. In closing, what sort of commitments are you making yourself moving forward to ensure that we use agric as one of those solid avenues for creating youth employment and beating poverty?
Well, I'll start by saying, for me, I tell people agric is a vision, it's not a vocation. And I have a Pan-African view about this, and that's why I'm here in Rwanda. We have projects in Ivory Coast. I'm going to Ghana in a couple of weeks. We have a project we're starting up in Ghana. In addition to our coffee project in Rwanda, we're starting a tomato project. And I'm partnering with a local ICT company here. He's also here. He's at the exhibition, Shikama. He's there. So I have a Pan-African view about this. And I go everywhere marketing Africa. When I'm in the US, I tell them, we sell the best coffee from Rwanda. No other coffee is as good as our coffee. We crush it. We sell the best coffee in the world, I tell people. So I'm proud of the African heritage. Everywhere I go to, I promote Africa everywhere. So we have to carry this sense of responsibility. It is not what I can do on my own. It's a job every one of us have to do. So we have to go around. It's not about Rwanda. 80% of the trade in Europe, they are intra-Europe trade. Now, you go to America, you get into the food more. You see all manners of import from Mexico. And we have land in Africa. Why can't we do such import into the US?
Right.
So we really have to carry ourselves with this sense of responsibility to ensure that we market Africa. We carry Africa everywhere we go to. We inspire a lot of young people. For young people who are successful in agri, don't be proud about it. It's a privilege. Right. Carry every other young person along. When they reach out to you on social media, I want to know about this. Even the most foolish question they ask me on social media, I respond to them.
Respond to it. Carry them along. Powerful indeed. How about you, Kaba? I mean, moving forward, what do we do? How do we move to ensure that more young people are actually involved in agribusiness and they're actually making it, not just surviving to be part of it?
Yeah. As we are with a lot of international organizations and UN organizations, I think that we need to involve youth not only as beneficiary of program or project, but as main actors. Trying to see youth who already build their business and who want to scale and give them the access to all these kind of services or market where they can work with international organizations. So I think that this can be relevant to really scale up all the businesses that we are now.
Right. So youth don't want just to be actors in
not only beneficiary but actors.
Main actors.
In some
Mashumba, what
projects.
about you?
What I'm doing to try and support other young people is I use a lot of my social media. I've got a website which I created because of the demand of people wanting to know called Munandi Africa. We are on Facebook. We've got a website. And I also do a lot of mentoring of other young people in order to just support them in their projects. And every conference I go, everything I get, I also tweet about it. I also share about the information so that it's not only for me, but it's also for 1,000 other people who read, who follow us on our social media. They can also benefit from that. So I believe that's how we can scale up the information we receive at these conferences and share with other young people.
Right. We wish you all the best on that. How about you?
I think the key word that we're trying to look for here is empowerment, right? And how exactly do we empower the youth? And so I think my key takeaway from this is what we need to do moving forward is find solutions in terms of, bridging the socioeconomic gaps, providing access to capital, and also in terms of providing practical education for the youth.
Right, perfect. How about you?
For me, I think it'll be just to address key issues about humanity before profit. If we just look at ourselves from
humanity before profit.
Yeah.
Someone will tell you how practical is that?
I think it's practical because it's very practical because humanity is where your consumer is. If you look at them like that, you will not have, that's the issues of standardization. You'll be practical in terms of what, the answer is all there around humanity. Profits are inside humanity because you're looking at a consumer. That's a human, But then that's where you'll have good produce. Food safety will be there, and you will think about it. And when I talk about humanity before profit, I talk about where I eat in some of the most shacked places just to understand what kind of food goes there. You find food which has stayed, fish which has stayed on the road for 3 days, and that is where somebody is going to sell that. So that's what I mean about humanity before profit. Are you selling right produce? Have it been handled well? And when you look at humanity before profit, that's where you find business ideas lying in those solutions about cold storages, logistics. So once that you address that, and that's why I go back to saying money follows passion. Within passion about humanity, that's where you'll have ideas, and that's where you'll find practical ideas which can be very successful behind it.
Humanity before profits.
Yeah.
Eugene, what key takeaways are you taking from here, and what sort of commitment are you making personally?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe for me, my job is very easy because although I can say it personally, but we are in a group. As I told you, we have a network of forum where we express our opinions, our challenges. So, and we use this platform even to bring more youth to do agriculture. As you're saying, my responsibility is to see more youth joining us, because for us, even it's a challenge when you are on the international market. The buyer you are meeting, he's first, what are we saying? Are you able to supply? So for me, I want to see more youth joining us. And for me, my job is easy because we have a big network where we have government support. They have set up a forum where we can express ourselves and we reach out them anytime. So with this forum, for me, we work as a group. We use all social media, we use all way of communication to engage more youth. Wherever I am, if I get someone who's starting to do a small thing, I tell, you come to our forum, we can even support you to link up with someone who can make you improve what you are doing. So I'm thinking, I was even requesting if this can be happening in all countries. It can happen to national countries level. And then for us, we catch meeting when you have so many group organized. We interact countries to countries. But for me, I think the job is very easy because we work with a group and we already have this kind of platforms.
Right, perfect. Okay, so we want to close it at this point. But if you feel you have a very burning issue, just one burning issue.
Yeah, this is a copy by, if you can have the camera, this is done by FOL. If you show this to a young person, a young woman like me, and say go into agriculture, are they going to go into it? Definitely not. I told the World Bank the same thing. If you want to make agriculture attractive, if you want to make it sexy, start by publishing it. Get a young person who's attractive, put them on this picture. I said this in Harare last year to say, can we try to make agriculture sexy? this organization, the UN, the FOA, whoever is involved in the agriculture sector, the advertising, whoever you are, make agriculture sexy. This is the beginning point of making it attractive to the young people.
Right.
If you, the organizers, the frontiers, the people who are supposed to lead us are putting such pictures, what are you sending to a person, a young person from the village? You pick this picture and like, oh, this is what we're living. But if they see a young person here, very attractive like me, and you put me here, even the young men in the village, they'll be like, wow, I want to be like her. I mean, where am I going to find this woman? Let me join agriculture. I mean, this is practical. That's what we need to be talking about. So please, my request is that next time we're going to have such a conference, whatever is coming up, you can look for me on Facebook, Tamara Happy Face Kaunda. Put my picture there and say she's a farmer. Yeah, and a medical doctor, yeah? Well, most people, they like to see me, oh, don't look at like she's farming, she's a doctor. No, I want to be called a farmer. Right. Because the problem we have in Africa is hunger. We don't need drugs. I work in a hospital, and I can guarantee you 80% of the diseases, why we're losing young people is because of poverty. So why then can't we give them the nutrition they need instead of the drugs? That's my switching from medicine to agriculture. So that's what we should be looking at. Another thing, she's from Singapore, I'm from Zambia. The borrowing rate in Zambia is about 35% to 40%. You can say, yes, I don't have, I don't want to go to the bank or whatever. No, I've tried going there. But why should I to make such a suicidal decision to go and borrow at a 40% rate? It's impossible. I want to go to the government to borrow. They say, no, you need to work for the government for 2 years. But I need the project running. I've got people following me. They need to come to the farm and see what I'm doing. So funding, we're not looking for charity. Like, I was quite offended by the doctor lady who said, no, farming is not a charity. Yes, we're not looking for charity. But if you can give me $10,000 at a rate of maybe 5%, 2%, like the Chinese they come with a lower percentage, and they come and invest here and they beat us, I cannot compete with her even if she came to Zambia, because she borrowed maybe from Singapore at a lower rate. But look at me in Zambia, 40%, that's suicide.
Right.
So we can talk and talk and talk, but let's create an enabling environment for the African youth. Because we can't have so much vast land, yet we are languishing in poverty. Netherlands cannot export to Africa if they don't feed their own people. Yes, I'm happy the young people are exporting, but why are we leaving our people? Why are they dying? African graves are the richest because we've lost so many young people to poverty and hunger. So we need to really critically look at agriculture as the oxygen for economical in Africa. It should not be a backbone. I can break my backbone today and I can live on. But if I don't have oxygen, I can't live on. So agriculture should be the oxygen of the economy in Africa. Thank you.
What a way to actually powerfully finish this conversation. One, make agriculture sexy in order to attract young people into it. And number two, start seeing agriculture as the oxygen of our economies and not just the backbone of our economies. From our teams right here, we want to say thank you for watching this CNBC Africa special. I'm Eugene Anangwe.